Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Charles Martin is emerging as a possible opponent for Tyson Fury for his next fight, which is potentially going to be in early October in New York. A venue and a date are still to be confirmed, as is the opponent, and also September has been talked about as a possible fight month for Fury. He's on the second fight of his co-promotional deal with ESPN and Top Rank for this fight, and his co-promoter Frank Warren recently stated that they would like it to be an American, and the leading contender seemingly until now had been Trevor Bryan, the unbeaten WBA interim world champion. But for whatever reason, things have gone quiet, and Charles Martin's name has emerged within the media, reports surfacing citing sources saying that Martin is in contention for a fight with Tyson Fury.
I walk this earth like a god.
And yet some of this I do wonder with the reporting if this has been hung out there, because I still think that Bryan remains the number one target at the moment. Tyson Fury has actually named Trevor Bryan as a possible opponent. So yeah, this is, I just wonder if they've hit a stumbling block with negotiations with Don King, who promotes Trevor Bryan, and maybe the Charles Martin news is a bit of deflection, throwing out there that there is another viable option for Tyson Fury should Trevor Bryan and his team, his management, Don King, play hardball to the extent that they sort of work their way out of the fight. And with Charles Martin being a PBC fighter, and with the ultimate goal looking like a Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury pay-per-view, Wilder being a PBC fighter, maybe PBC would be amenable to putting up one of their fighters for Tyson Fury in this next fight. Charles Martin, yeah, this is an opponent that I think Tyson Fury could actually look really good against. I think Charles Martin is tailor-made for Tyson Fury. Martin, while he's a decent puncher, he's relatively durable. I think with his lack of movement, and I think he would just get picked off and peppered with jabs and other shots from the much taller and rangier Tyson Fury, who'd be moving all night, and he'd be able to, I think, just box the socks off Charles Martin. Some of the fights where Martin has excelled in his career, the opponent is someone that is not necessarily a mover, it's more someone that can stand in front of him, and that's really his wheelhouse, someone who doesn't give him too much movement. We saw against Adam Kovnatski, and that was in 2018, Martin having some success in that fight, but Kovnatski is not a guy that is going to be hard to find, and those are the sort of matchups that favour Martin's style. He's a big puncher, he's a decent southpaw, decent technician, but he is not a noted mover. And I think if his feet were sort of stuck in mud in a fight with Tyson Fury, I think that's all wrong for him. I think Fury would just really outclass him, potentially make him even look a little bit silly. I mean, we saw with Tom Schwartz what he did to him. Martin certainly is a more durable and better version and a much better opponent than Tom Schwartz, but Charles Martin still does have his limitations. And I do wonder about the potential marketing of that fight should it be made, because remember, Charles Martin fought Anthony Joshua in 2016, did a lay-down Sally, took a couple of punches, and really looked like he just surrendered the belt. And while he's been slowly rehabilitating his image with a couple of performances like the Kovnatski one, but that was still a loss, I'm just not sure that he's really done enough for fans to sort of completely forget that, for it to be shaken from our consciousness, because he didn't turn up, he didn't perform, he looked beaten in there, he could have beaten the count, and ultimately it was a very dire performance, and I think he's still working his way back from that. Had he sort of put on another couple of good wins against top opposition, maybe he would be able to put that behind him, but he's lost to Kovnatski, but that did rehabilitate his image to some extent, because it was an all-out sort of slugfest with Adam Kovnatski, and he almost seemingly stopped Kovnatski later in the fight. He really put it on him, looked like he'd get him out of there, but Kovnatski rallied late to sort of hold him off and win that fight with a unanimous decision. But it was a good fight, but a very different fight to the one that the Tyson Fury fight would be if Charles Martin was the opponent. But some of this, I just wonder if this is that name out there to give Don King and Trevor Bryan something to think about. And we've seen recently with Don King and some of his demands that it has seen fights fall through. And that fight that Molina was going to have with Joseph Parker, it fell through to the demands that were being put forward to Eddie Hearn and Matchroom about what Molina should be paid. So it wouldn't surprise me if Don King is trying to play hardball here in terms of what he can get for his fighter Trevor Bryan, because I think we're all expecting, if a Bryan fight with Fury is made, that it's going to be a walkover job, that Tyson Fury would go in there and really have no issues dealing to Trevor Bryan, either by decision or even potentially stopping him. We just don't know how good Trevor Bryan is because he hasn't been fighting on TV much, he hasn't been fighting good opposition, and he's been inactive for the past year, so it's not like we've had a recent look at him. And many people suspect, including myself, that he's effectively a similar fighter to Tom Schwartz, a guy who does have a padded record, who once they step up to a proper level where they're tested, could end up falling short. As I've been saying in previous videos, Trevor Bryan for me feels like Tom Schwartz 2.0. On paper it looks credible. Obviously he has this interim world title, which that interim status was put on the line late against a former cruiserweight in BJ Flores. So it's hard to really know how much to read into his credentials, the opponents that he's fought, and how good he is. We'll maybe only, like Schwartz, really get to know once he steps up in competition. But Charles Martin, is this really going to happen? Is it viable, or is this putting out misinformation to try get Trevor Bryan in that fight over the line? I'm sort of leaning in that direction, but if Charles Martin does end up being the opponent, well, good for him, he'll probably get a decent payday, but I think he would be a perfect style matchup for Tyson Fury. Fury would probably relish that opportunity. He'd also be able to get a former champion on his resume, although, I'm not sure how fans would be, how much fans would be jazzed for the matchup. Some fans are still, haven't forgiven Martin, so we'll have to see where this goes. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.